Learn how to start a business in your community with Launch Local podcast, full of know-how and inspiration from successful small business owners, including your host, Amber Artemis. Hey everybody, Amber Artemis here, and I'm sitting down today with Steve Ohl from RFO. They are a heating oil delivery company, and they also specialize in HVAC and plumbing services. And they're located in Lehighton, Pennsylvania. They have over 11,000 customers that they serve annually. They've been in business for 40 years. Is that 40 years exactly?
Yeah, it was 40 years in April.
Wow, congratulations. That is amazing.
Thank you.
Um, you know, I'd say your business is more than sustainable if thinking of all the changes that have taken place in the last 40 years.
Been many.
Well, um, I also see that it says you serve 11,000 customers and 5 counties. Is that correct?
Yes,
That's a pretty big area. How many people do you employ?
20.
Those guys get around.
Yeah.
They're hustling. That's a lot of customers in a pretty big area. So, why don't you walk me through what your operations look like day to day? And maybe you can begin with where you at right now.
I'm at our operations office. Basically, what we do there is we dispatch all of our service technicians and install crews out of that office for HVAC and plumbing services. So that's where I'm at today.
And is that office open to the public, or are customers coming to see you there?
No, it's a closed office to the public. It's just employees, and there's a lot of traffic going in and out, so that's why we don't have it open to the public. Just with service vehicles and delivery vehicles coming in and out.
And is there any part of your business right now that is open to the public?
We do have an office on Second Street in Lehighton that we do take appointments there if somebody needs to meet face to face. The majority of our contact is we go to the customers' homes. So if somebody wants an HVAC appointment and they're looking at something new or an upgrade, we're sending our home comfort specialists out to their house. So there's no need for them to come to us. And then the same way on the delivery side for heating oil, most of that stuff is done online, or you phone your order in, or customers are on automatic. So they're just getting deliveries as normal. And then payments, we have all kinds of ways that they can pay online, credit cards and ACHs, etc.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense because like oil's like a commodity. It's something that people, shop around for and then they sign up for a service and then you're their guy. And
Yeah.
that's like a utility exchange basically. But it seems like it's a real advantage to be able to meet customers in their homes for the HVAC or the plumbing because that's where they need the service. And so your tech can size everything up.
Yeah, you'd really have to be in the home to see what's going on. It would be very hard to do virtually.
So I've known you a few years. We met like 7 years ago, and when we first met, you had a big, I mean, I don't know, what was that, 2,000 square feet, showroom with, like,
Yeah, it was
patio
actually like,
equipment.
yeah,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
we had a big office. It was about 6,800 square foot building. And we mainly had that for the retail side of our business. We already had moved our operations out of that office just because logistically it didn't work, because we needed so much parking, so many trucks in and out of the area making deliveries, of HVAC equipment. So it just didn't make sense to have that office there in the retail space. And then we had a hearth and patio showroom, but eventually that really started to fall off with online purchasing of those products. And, just it became that you could buy those kind of things anywhere. So what we
Right,
found is
like
people were coming, they'd come visit us and then go buy the product online. So it just didn't make sense to have that brick and mortar building anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, this is just one small example of, I think, how you've evolved over the years and in the short time that I've known you. But I wonder if you could take us back even further to, like, what was this company when it first started and how did it get started?
So we first started in heating oil delivery. It came out of my dad was a delivery heating oil delivery person for a local company, and that company was going out of business. So my dad had actually got into water well drilling, and my grandfather was a well driller. So my dad started doing that, and then he realized how much oil he was burning in the drill rig engine. And he's like, "Hey, I know how to do this. I can get my own truck and just start getting my own oil, for the diesel engine." So that's what he started doing. And then people saw him driving that truck around, and they remembered that he had, delivered oil in that area, and they just started calling him and saying, "Hey, I'd like to have you deliver my oil." He found out what he needed to do to start the business and deliver heating oil to customers. So he just started doing that, and he had a small, maybe 300 accounts that he just kept. During the summer months, he'd drill water wells, and then in the winter he'd deliver oil.
Hmm.
So he wanted me to go to school for something, and he came to me and he said, "I need a lawyer or an accountant. What do you want to be?" And I was like, "Well, I'm, I'm not really into the law thing, but I had been taking accounting in high school, and so I got my bachelor's degree in 3 years. Knew that that's exactly what I wanted to do, and I came home in May of 1990, and he said, "Here you go." He threw me the keys to the office, and he said, "Use what you learned and don't spend any money." So, okay. I had to do everything. I learned marketing guerrilla style, the guerrilla style marketing of just how can I do this with a super low budget, sometimes no budget. So I just started growing the business that way, using our existing customers and, marketing as effectively as possible, the only way I knew. And we eventually grew that business to like 3,000 customers. And
Wow.
then my father had passed away in 2002, and my brother and I had been doing this for so many years. We just, like, hey, we're going to keep going. So that's how we got here.
What was your brother's role in the business?
He was mainly operations, so he drove delivery truck, and he knew how to do all things mechanical. He was really good at that stuff. So yeah, he did all the things that I didn't like to do, and I did all the things that he didn't like to do. He didn't like being in an office and pushing paper and computers and all the things that come with that. So, and then eventually he left the business in 2018, 2019, and then I've been me ever since.
So I have some questions. With the business, when your father first started it, were you helping out as a teenager?
Yeah. Well, at first we really didn't have a choice. He said, "You can you can go and complain, or you can be happy that I'm taking you along and you're learning something." And then eventually, he started paying us a couple dollars here and there when he was able to, and just over time that we actually it developed into a career for all of us. So that's kind of how we started it. But our family, like we've been doing that kind of work. We always did something. I can remember as, being 6, 7 years old, working with my grandfather on the well drilling rig. I'm sure that's not today's standards that you'd be out there doing that. But I remember spending the summers with him working. And then when my dad started his own business, same thing. We started the water well drilling business. I think it was 81 when he started that. And I just remember him sitting around the table with my grandfather, myself, my brother, and my dad. And he's like, "What do you guys think? You want to help out, do this thing?" And we're like 12 years old. I was 12, my brother was 10. And we're like, "Sure, sounds good. Let's go do it." And so, I mean, it was really cool that he was including us because he knew he would need the help. And, that's the way things were done for so many years, in in this
We
area.
actually
We're
well, we
over now.
actually well, we kinda did the same thing, same ages, actually. Our 10 and 12-year-old, this summer, we took them my husband and I have that winery business, and we took them to the farmer's market for the summer. They had to get up every Saturday this summer at 6 AM,
Yeah,
to go to go with us to work the farmer's market, and we gave them a responsibility. My one son potted up spider plant babies. I don't know if you could let's see. Right there.
yeah,
Behind me. There's a spider plant back there, that's very prolific, and, he potted up the babies in the spring, and I told him that he could sell them at the farmer's market, and so they had their own little, like, area of responsibility, and they got into it. It was hard, it wasn't easy getting up and helping with the unloading and loading up and stuff, and, being tired or hot or whatever. But they liked it. Obviously, something stuck for you and your brother because you
yeah.
stayed with it.
I mean, we really we enjoyed working, and we were with our family, so it was just we that's all we knew. We didn't really know anything different.
Let me ask, like, what was your father's full name? Because he's RFO, right?
Yeah, yeah. His name was Robert Franklin Ole,
And
so
what
that's
was
what he
your
asked.
his middle name was Franklin? How have you not told me
Yeah,
this before? Do you know I'm obsessed with Ben Franklin?
no, I didn't.
Yeah. I know a lot of, people over the last couple 100 years have gotten named after him. Was that what the Franklin referred to?
There was a tradition in our family that you were named after your it was a grandfather, I believe. They went down the line like grandfather, great grandfather, so forth. So the middle name usually came from somebody in the past that was named that.
And is that your was that your grandfather's name, Franklin?
No, and I'm not 100% sure which one it was because uh, as you go back in the family history, a lot of that just wasn't talked about, or
Hmm,
uh, my family wasn't much on
genealogy.
trees. Yeah, so,
Well, we'll have to geek out sometime because that's one of
yeah,
my hobbies. I'll make you a tree. You would be surprised what you can find out through ancestry.
yeah. My
It's all like
sister's done that. She has like all that info going like way back, but I didn't really study it.
but you did study accounting, which is
But
kind
yeah,
of
that I
important
did.
if you're gonna run a business. Well, beyond technical skills, of knowing how to drill a well and then figuring out, the how to get oil, like your father had also figure out all of the administrative stuff. Like what did you inherit when you came back from school? It sounds like you grew the business substantially.
What did I inherit? I always joke because when people ask for directions, they're like, "Hey, where does that guy live?" Well, remember where that house was that burned down in 19 whatever 57? Those were directions that he had in his card. Turn left at the big rock by the road. So he had little file cards for each customer. And that was my problem then, was to figure out, was their name correct? Did they have an actual phone number? What was the address? Because some didn't have addresses. There was farms, and he would go deliver the diesel fuel to the farmers, and they would just pay him because he knew he was driving there. So he didn't make an invoice or anything. You just got paid and handed the guy your slip and the meter reading, and off you went. So he never wrote those directions down. He just knew where they were. So when I
And
came, and it's like, we got to organize this, so I know what I'm looking at. It was a lot of work to get through those customers, and then get everything listed properly with the correct addresses and phone numbers and names.
to unpackage the database from his mind.
Yeah, yeah, that's what it was. So it was a process of doing that, and then eventually in I think 1993, I convinced him that we should have a computer. So
It's about time.
yeah.
So he continued to work in the business, so you worked together for a number of years?
Yeah, I mean, we were together pretty much every day until he passed away in 2002.
I'm sorry, and that was pretty sudden, right?
Yeah, he had lung cancer. He found out in June, and by August he was gone. It was an aggressive form of lung cancer.
Wow. Yeah, and I'm skipping ahead quite a bit, but I know that, that loss has affected your choices in your business, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it was you went from relying on your dad to hey, you're the guy, and it was a sudden thing. Luckily, my dad had prepped us. He had done estate planning and he had prepped us because he was planning on retiring actually within a year or two before he passed away. So he was actually in like semi retirement mode already. He said, "I'm just going to show up when I want, and you and your brother are going to do the work. And if you have questions, let me know." And like we were fine with that. We were like, okay, that's what he wants to do, and we're doing the work anyway. But we still saw him pretty much every day, and he said he was stay away, but he didn't. he was he was in. He at least he would stop by and um, talk with us and talk with customers. He really enjoyed talking with customers, and we had a retail business at the time, so we sold like hearth and patio products, and then we also had a motor oil division. We were selling motor oil at the time too, so there was a lot of people coming in for those kind of items into the store.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Delicious elderberry wine, fresh and healthy elderberry syrup, crisp ciders, all available 7 days a week at Wild Elder Wine and Cider Company, 76 Broadway in Jim Thorpe, specializing in regional folk wines and ciders just like your grandparents used to make. Elderberry, blueberry, raspberry, blackberry, apple. Now serving lunch too. That's Wild Elder Wine and Cider Company, 76 Broadway in Jim Thorpe. Open every day 11 till 5. Also available online at wildelder.com.
Yeah, so let's get back on this arc of the business. It started out as a seasonal fuel oil delivery service, and at some point you're selling patio equipment, and you were also in propane,
Yeah, we
which you
did
got
have
out
a
of.
propane. Yeah, so we did have a
So, like,
propane business.
walk me through, like, what came first? Because you said you started in the early '90s, right, when you personally came back from school and really got serious, and you were in management, you were marketing and growing your customers, you were systematizing things as far as getting information into a system that others can access. Um, and I'm not sure by what point you mentioned that you had grown to about 3,000 customers. So I'd love to sort of just hear about the arc of growth and also just, how you've changed directions a number of times over the years. I mean, I think that that shows like a willingness to not double down when you know this isn't working.
So we we started when I got out of college in 1990. We we started a motor oil division, ran that for a while, and then eventually that just kind of petered out because there was the new cars. You basically couldn't work on them yourselves, so we had a lot of people that would come in on weekends and buy cases of oil and filters and do their own oil changes. So we ran that for a while until it just got to the point where like this doesn't make sense to have this anymore, and we sold that division off to a
Wait, wait,
larger
wait.
company.
You sold your motor oil division off?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And to like, how did you find a buyer? Was that a local or regional buyer, I
It was
assume?
a local, yeah, it was a local buyer. So we had known them because in the motor oil business, you could spend an hour just on that. Is very difficult to navigate because it's controlled by so many large corporations and they have buying minimums. So I used to buy off of the larger guys so that I could resell the product. But then eventually I got to that point where I was getting to be larger and being able to secure my own supplies. So I was just at that point where like you reach this growth, like, do I want to continue down this path and, dump a bunch of capital into this business, or do I just want to sell it to somebody who can take what they already have and could take care of these customers? Because there's a whole retail side of motor oil, but then there's the industrial side where you're delivering drums and totes of it and large quantities. So we had relied a lot on the retail side, but the retail side was starting to really go down. The sales were going down, and I just saw this coming, and we're like, let's hand this off to somebody that's going to take, the core value of our motor oil business and take over the inventory and basically buy the inventory out and take over the customer list. So that's what we did. Um,
And
but
like
then,
roughly how large was that customer list? Just out of curiosity.
uh, I can't remember. I mean, it was hundreds. It wasn't thousands. So motor
Okay.
oil business is much different than, like delivering to homes. It's you're delivering to specific businesses and excavation companies, things like that. So yeah, we did that. I think we've around 2010 or 11 we sold that division off. But then, so just going backwards into 2002, before my dad got sick, we were planning on doing a propane division. So we had made provisions already to start, and then um, when my dad got sick, and we just kept going. We're like, hey, he told us, just do what you think is best, and that's what we did. So my brother and I just kept the business going, and we started a propane division, ran that 15 years. And my brother, like I mentioned, he was the operations guy. He did all those things that I didn't know how to do. And uh, so he had gotten sick and he could no longer work in the business. So we just made a decision to sell the propane division to another company so that those customers would be taken care of. And we went and focused on our HVAC and heating oil division, um, just because it didn't need the amount of um, operational intensity, I'll call it, for the propane base.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about before that there's a lot of barriers to entry and continuing to operate. Like there's like safety protocols. It's very stringent around the propane,
Yeah,
correct?
it definitely is. It's a very different animal, and you just have to, there's guidelines and things that you have to do, and there's a lot of expenses and capital investments that come with that. So it just, just a decision to exit that business while it was still valuable, and the fact that my brother was no longer going to be there. So it was very taxing, those 3 years from when he got sick until we sold that division. So it was just a quality of life and a business decision.
I have to ask, you keep referring to divisions. I'm a total noob about like corporate formations. Like, explain to me how that works. Like, pretend I don't know anything about this. Like, talk to me like I'm a toddler here.
Well, I mean, it's actually pretty basic. So divisions within a corporation, you have different financial structure. So if you have three divisions, you have three different sets of financials that all tie together to one main core financial. So all your expenses for buying whatever it is that you buy related to propane, all your expenses that whatever you buy related to heating oil, all your expenses related to HVAC. So everything is separated. Those things that are not separated, you have to make a decision based on sales volume, unit volume, employees, whatever it is, to divide those those expenses up equally amongst, and in ratios that make sense amongst the different financials. But it's
Okay,
just
so
basic.
it's an accounting measure, not like
Yeah,
a
it's not a
separate corporate
legal. Yeah,
formation.
no, so the divisions are not different legal entities. I mean, some companies do operate that way, but it's even more complicated if you do it that way. So it was just easier to do it divisionally in the financial side, so you know where you're making profit and where you need to uh, trim expenses, or move different equipment around, different things like that.
Okay, got it. Thanks. Yeah, cool. So I've heard the motor oil division story. We got the propane story. What about, yeah, and the patio, and what did you call it? Home and hearth? There were
Home and
fireplaces
hearth.
too. Home
Yeah,
hearth.
we started that division before we started the propane division. Um, so we opened up a retail store at the former Ekman Lumber Company on Main Road in Lehighton. That was in 1999. We just saw a need at the time for the hearth and patio, like gas grills, fireplaces, uh, heating stoves, that look like decorative stoves, and log sets for fireplaces that ran on propane. So we're selling all these propane appliances. That's what made us the genesis to get into the propane, and start our own propane company. Since we're selling these products, why not sell the fuel to go with it? And
Well, that's what your dad did with the drilling, with the well
yeah,
drilling.
that's kind of, yeah. What, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's it's like, oh, there's a need here, and so we that's kind of how we always looked at it. If we were going to start something new, we'd look at what's the need, what's the entry point, what's the barrier to entry, and obviously how much money is it going to take to invest into that division to get it going until it's profitable.
Okay. So I feel like I got a pretty good picture of RFO's operations. I came in 2017, we met, and you had this 6,000 foot square foot building with a showroom. Recall that you were dealing with a lot of customers who really like to come in person to pay their bill. And there was a little bit of a pain point to move people online or to remote payment. Um, can you tell me
So
about that?
since around 2009, when everybody started using, not everybody, but we started using email, we saw the ability to save on postage, to communicate quicker and faster with our customers about things. So we were, heavily collecting email addresses, and we were marketing, to those customers through there. And the fact that they could go online and pay their bill online 24 hours a day, they didn't have to wait for us. They didn't have to pick up the phone and waste time calling when they could just do it from the comfort of their home or wherever they were. So we had always had the ability for customers to pay online. And some customers just, they like to get out and drive around and see you. And that was perfectly fine. We were there. But, then come the pandemic, and that kind of flipped everything because nobody wanted to meet face to face. And we already had all the infrastructure set up to pay online and order fuel online and do anything you wanted, make appointments, for HVAC services. Everything could be done online. So we didn't have to do anything different. We just made sure everybody was aware of that. Hey, do you remember you can do this? And suddenly, everybody that was dropping a check off or, coming to pay you in cash, they just went online and made their payments. And when, we were coming out of the pandemic, it didn't seem to have to be a need to go back to the old way when everybody was fine with the way that it is now. So we left it that way, and it's rare that somebody actually requests, an in-person visit. Um, so it's usually we go to them, we go to those customers, and we're always customer facing because almost every interaction we have is customer facing. We don't sell anything that you don't go to the home. So everything we do is a service or a fuel delivery. There's nothing we have that we wouldn't come to the house for. So it just makes sense.
Yeah, I you were already moving in that direction pre-COVID. You sold your building and purchased a smaller, like, mixed-use commercial building. And I know this because I was working for the community foundation that you donated office space to. So at the time when I was the executive director of a community foundation, my office got co-located with your business, which was
Yeah.
It was great. I mean, a very resourceful use of space, but I feel like COVID sort of reinforced the direction you were trying to move your customers and your business. And you'd purchased the property, that you weren't leasing that 6,000 square foot building. So, you sold that off, and you at the same time that you sold off the propane division. And I have to ask, like, it's a major sort of realignment, right? Business-wise around what you saw the future of your business being, but you also had a lot of cash on hand then at that point. Like, did you invest into that business, or was this a way for you to personally and your brother, to be able to step back?
As I mentioned, the propane business is capital intensive, so there was a lot of capital there that you had financed. So money that from the sale of the propane business went into paying off those investments that we had in the capital side, and then also for my brother for his portion to get to allow him to exit the business, and then reinvesting, yes, into the additional. We had to get another building. We beefed up our um, HVAC division. We added more software on the mobile side of the business because our technicians are basically, they all have like a mini computer with them to access all of our customer lists and see their work orders. So we're totally paperless. We don't have any paper. We made that a mission in 2010 that we wanted to go paperless. So we've been actively pursuing that. It took, believe it or not, it took like probably 4 years, starting in 2010, to get away from the paper. I was just having this conversation with my wife about how much copier paper we used to buy. We'd buy it basically like 20 cases at a time, and you were going through that in probably a month and a half. It was crazy. Now, like, you're buying like 2 or 3 boxes and it lasts you a long time. So yeah, it was just a different mindset, trying to get that. I've always wanted to leverage technology because I felt it helped the business, it helped the customers, and the pandemic proved that. When that came around, it's like, hey, we're already doing all this stuff. My team could work remotely from home. We had them set up that way so that if there was an ice storm or something, where they couldn't get into the office, it didn't matter. Our business still kept moving no matter what. And that was the important part.
Yeah, you're uh, I think I know what our community is like. In a lot of ways, sometimes I joke that, we live in this rural community that maybe is like in some areas like 20 years behind, 10, 20 years behind more urban areas. And so you've kind of proven yourself to be a leader in your industry in this area, adopting things before others. And like I said, I admire that you've gotten out of things too. I think that that's a hard thing for some people to do, to walk away from something, to know when is a good time to walk away. I heard you use the terms like, while it was still profitable, we decided to get out of that.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot of emotion that is involved. You spend all this time doing something, and there's a lot of emotion there. And and me personally, I really enjoyed talking to people about barbecue grills and grilling, and that was like a passion of mine. I always enjoyed talking to people. So to see that, to exit that side of the business too, was like, oh, there was, definitely some emotional involvement there because you always shared stories and recipes. And, there was always people coming in that you were talking to about, hey, remember that grill I bought? I'm still using it. And I made this yesterday, so that was always fun. But, we still have those stories with the people when we meet them. Just that they're not buying a grill from me anymore because I don't sell them.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Live from downtown Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. Wine, Cider, and Song brought to you by Wild Elder Wine and Cider Company.
wild elder came down from the mountain, said the secret of youth ain't found in no fountain. If you wanna feel spry, we past the age of 99. You gotta have a daily chug of wild elderberry wine.
Gotta drink it dry.
Elderberry wine. You gotta drink it dry. Wild elderberry wine. You gotta drink it dry. Elderberry wine. It'll probably cure what ails you.
Well, I think this is a good spot to pivot to talk about your team, because as I co-located with you and your team for a time, I remember just thinking it was remarkable what a great like atmosphere you guys had built like with your you made me feel like part of the team, and which I really appreciate. I don't know if I thanked you enough for that. I won the chili cook-off.
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys are a company that really values like it's like not only are you a family business, but it seems like, your team are an extension of your family, and your wife especially was really thoughtful, making sure everybody felt at home as well as at work. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you support your team? How do you do that?
Well, at first it's trial and error. We didn't have the tools early on, and a lot of our team was family. So you just had to deal with each other and whatever way it was, because you were, at the end of the day, you were still going home, and had supper together. So yeah, that dynamic definitely changed when we added more employees and people that were not family. So I was actively looking for a way to make sure I knew that people were getting along, and every generation always assumes the other generation is doing something different than they thought they should do. So mixing the generations together is sometimes problematic, because you have somebody who's set in their ways and they've been doing this for 50 years, and then you have somebody new who's been doing this for a month, and trying to mix the people together and understand the personalities. I really started spending a lot of time on that. So I had been working with a business coach and was introduced to Disc and Profile XT. So I started using more heavily. I was using the Profile XT, and really delving into personalities and how they worked, how they learned, and so everybody that works with us, they all take this assessment, and then that's how we figure out how to best make sure they're learning the way they need to learn, and how they're going to best get along with other people, and then how I can interact with them best, because ultimately I'm the one that has to change and modify the way I talk to them, because they don't know the way that they should talk to me all the time. You know what I mean? So when you're the leader, you have to basically program yourself to understand who you're talking to and how you should best communicate with them. Because some people like to be talked to face to face, some just want an email, some want a text, so there's different ways of communication. There's different ways to learn. Some people want to be showed how to do things. Others, they read what you write and they'll do it on their own. And then there's people that, want to dive in and help you do it. Then that's how they learn. So yeah, it's interesting, and I enjoy that side of the business and building a team that way. But it's a lot of work. You still have to do, if you're going to spend the money on the tools, then you have to use them to do the work. So
Yeah, so the DISC is more of a basic personality type indicator test, is my understanding, but the Profile XT is about a specific position,
yeah, you can you
typing
can
the
you can
skills
set
within a position, right?
yeah, you can set parameters that you're looking for within a position, and then it gives you a matching percentage of how much that person is matched to the parameters that you've set up for that job posting, so, or that position. So that's been very helpful.
Maybe in your own words, can you just tell me what is the Profile XT?
It's a tool that you would use to help you find the best candidate for the position that you're looking to fill. And then once you've found that candidate, how they best get along with the team. So, it's a learning thing over time. I've been doing this since 2010 using those assessments. So I can usually look at it pretty quickly and figure out if that person is going to be a good fit for the job or not. And then, we use that to interview them. We'll bring the person back for a second interview and ask questions based off the assessments that we give.
Yeah, I actually got to experience this firsthand, and I still think about it. I still talk about it occasionally. I'm just like, wow, this was phenomenal. So, and my inside, not really understanding, not having the, the 40,000 foot view or whatever of what this is doing, because this is your system that you use with your staff. Um, my experience with it was that you were a board member of the foundation that I was employed by, and you all were relatively pleased with the job that I did. And so I had to fill out a questionnaire. I just remember filling out a questionnaire about, and I guess this was the Profile XT, about how I did my job. And then based on that, you turned that into who was providing this type of service. If somebody wanted to use the Profile XT, like, is it through your personal coach or your business coach that you're doing these services, or how do you gain
Well,
access to that?
there's different coaches and organizations that are certified to use the program. Typically, you're not just going out and doing it on your own. You're using somebody to help you. If you've never done it, you want somebody to help you through that process, because it is a lot of information. So you have to figure out how best to use that information that makes sense for you. Um, so as you go along and learn more about it and use it consistently, then you'll eventually be able to do it on your own. But you still, the way the system's set up, they go through an organization or a coach to submit the assessments to the employees and our prospective employees. So that's how it works.
If you could do anything differently, what would you do differently today? Looking back on all the lessons you learned.
I would have delved into buying other companies quicker. I started buying other HVAC and heating oil companies in 2013. People that were looking to exit for retirement or get into another line of business. But I had been approached several times before that. I just, for whatever reason, didn't think I could do it. Possibly, it's probably like self doubt, like, oh, that's a
Yeah.
lot, to buy another company. So once I got around that, then I had a process and uh, I had ways to do it, and it's trial and error like everything else. And then once you do it, now we've done it 7 times. So, by now I have a formula and I know all the questions I need to ask. I know what to do. It's actually easy. It's the quickest way to grow your business versus organically or marketing.
And like, what do you look for, like, when you're buying another company?
Well, you want a company that has the same values as you do, as um, and that can be business values, personal values, however you want to view it. But you want to acquire customers that are like your existing customers, because you don't want a business that has like all C and D customers. You want the A, B, C, mainly A's and B's, and that's RFO. We look for A and B customers.
What
The
does that
values that
mean?
we provide. An A and B customer is somebody who really values your services that you provide. What is the saying that 15% of the customer base takes up 85% of your time? The rest are really happy with you and your services. And so you look for those customers who are, similar to you. They're happy. They like to do things. They value security, all the things that you can offer them, and you market to them that way. So if you're going to be the low price leader and you're just selling no value, just strictly a commodity product, that's fine. Then you go out and you do that, and then you're going to attract a certain class of customer, but you're going to have to deal with that. If you want to market to customers who really like the fact that you do everything for them, they're willing to accept that, and they understand the value that you provide them, and they're willing to pay for that. So that's RFO. We've always provided exceptional value, great customer service, really taking care of the customer, offering them so many different ways to communicate, versus calling up and leaving a voicemail, and then you never hear from somebody for a week, and the guy calls you back and says, "Oh yeah, by the way, I can do that for you now." So that's not what we were about.
Well, and I have to say, you're such a great communicator. I've been on your email list. You keep things conversational. You're not always like overtly marketing to people, and you've partnered with. I mean, you're largely self-taught, and you partner with marketing experts at this point. It's a little bit
Yeah,
of column A and B.
I really, yeah, the technical side, I am not, that's not me, like putting together email blasts and things. But, the marketing side of, hey, this should be in the email blast. This is what we're talking about. Our whole thing is we want to educate and advise customers. After that, they make the decisions. We never want to, force them to make a decision. So educating and advising is what we do. And then, if they take that education and that advice and they go with it, they're gonna buy your product, or they're gonna use your service. So that's kind of how we do everything.
And okay, so you said you had 11,000 customers. Do you know how big your email list is these days?
About 8,900,
Okay. Okay.
8,900 customers we have on the list, and then we have another approximately 12,000 of prospects that we regularly market to. And those are people that sign up for different things that we offer. Could be downloading a white paper on how to fix your own faucet or things. And very rarely do people opt out because we are providing them with value. And that's what
Yeah.
we look to do in our email.
You're very good at it. I think I'm still on your email list. Okay, I
Good.
have one last question for you. What are your goals for the future, and have you considered an exit strategy? Like I asked you earlier, I started to say that maybe I'm jumping ahead a little. I thought you might have mentioned how, like your father's death, him dying before retirement may have impacted you and your plans for retirement.
No, I mean, I'm 55 years old, so I have a long time to go yet before I would retire. And I do enjoy this. So, as long as I have the right people in place and the business is going, I still have a family member involved in the business. So my son is involved in the heating oil delivery side. So as long as I enjoy it and it's something that we want to keep doing, then I plan to just keep doing it. I didn't really think about retirement. My exit strategy is more so to put the right people in the right place. So if I don't have to show up to work today, then I don't have to show up to work. I can work from home. I can work from my cell phone. And mainly at some point, when you put the right people in place, you're mostly just answering questions. You're not like doing the physical work.
Yeah, and I guess I'm gonna double down on this though. I think that based on what I know from our personal friendship, that you have not put off doing the things that some people might for retirement. Like you love going to concerts, you like to travel, um, preferably doing both, traveling and going to a
Yeah.
concert. It seemed to me that you've positioned your business in such a way that you have that flexibility with your schedule, and that's not that wasn't an accident. That was not imposed by COVID. That was something that was a direction you chose to head in, is what it sounded like to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I started that when we were talking about going paperless in 2010. I started working on the ability that I didn't have to be in a physical office to handle, the calls and the situations that were coming about.
And that's great. You've done such a good job, Steve. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I honestly could talk to you for another hour. There's a lot of things that we just scratched the surface on. It's a very particular industry. I mean, the fuel oil versus the HVAC and the plumbing. I think it's interesting, like how you've evolved over time and how you continue to just stay on mission and do what's going to bring the most value to your customers. And I appreciate you sharing everything you have today with me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Bye. Launch Local is an original podcast produced and recorded by Amber Artemis at Leisure Lane Studio in Jim Thorpe, PA. Show music is by Joshua Finsel. This is a video podcast available for viewing on YouTube or at the show website, LaunchLocal.biz, where you can subscribe to the show newsletter and find helpful tools like the Ready to Launch quiz. Take the quiz at LaunchLocal.biz to find out how I could help you launch your own local business.